But going back to our original points is that a problem, or I would say a misappropriation that a lot of people make in terms of understanding Islam is when they put on their secular glasses or their liberal glasses or the democratic glasses and they try and look at Islam or measure Islam in accordance with that. Let me tell you something. If you do that, Islam will not measure up.
So you're saying you have to change your perspective?
You have to change your perspective, because the thing is this. The ruler of the West, and this is a post-colonial narrative, yeah? After the colonial, you have to understand that the Age of Discovery and the British Empire, these were not easy empires. They really had an encroachment of the earth. And the last colonial colony of Britain was like in the 50s. They're not just going to give all of that up easily, right? The Western world has a strong ideological encroachment on the rest of the world. It's because of its hegemonic power position, yeah? It wants us to believe what it believes. It just does, okay? It makes sense for its foreign policy, it makes sense for its domestic policy, it makes sense for its economic policies. What it believes now is not necessarily a religious framework. It's no longer the time of Christianity anymore. Christianity does not inform Western domestic or foreign policy anymore. It doesn't, yeah? Now it's secularism, now it's liberalism, now it's democracy. So the point is this. To what extent can we say that these ideologies are objective truths? And do the propounders of those ideologies or the philosophers that originally initiated them intend for them to be seen as objective truths? These ideologies were never intended to be seen as objective truths. So now, if you measure... No, what I'm saying is that, for example, the idea of liberalism, which was refined by like John Stuart Mill, you could say liberalism started with Thomas Hobbes. You could argue that with the Leviathan, and it continued up into J.S. Mill. And it was refined by him. The idea that you can do whatever you want so long as you don't harm anyone else, which is okay to some extent, but it's not what we go with. Because if you accept that premise, you accept incest, for example. You accept it.
But even incest, you can't, if it's bad, right?
Yeah.
So you can't actually stop people from doing it. That's how if they want to do
Yeah,
that,
but we could say it's morally wrong, right?
Of course it's wrong.
Okay, but
I
liberalism,
think people do what they
on a
want.
liberal ideological framework, it wouldn't be wrong. It would just be an expression of someone's desires.
It would be wrong because the whole point of liberalism is individualism.
Yeah, exactly.
So subjectivity.
Right.
Recognizing subjectivity and kind of going
Right,
away.
I get that point, but then I would ask, how can we prove that that is the truth?
We can't.
Well, we can't.
There is
Okay,
no-
good.
like,
Yeah,
like
proof.
absolute
Oh, good, excellent. So if we can't prove that that's something which is absolutely or objectively true, then measuring Islam according to it is like measuring something with a stretchy ruler.
Fair enough.
Okay, if you use a stretchy ruler to measure something, then you're never going to get a precise measurement. 100 years ago, today, women were not allowed to vote in this country, and there was a strong case. I mean, if you think about it, there was a strong case for it. If you look at the parliamentary records, how people were actually talking against women's rights, it was normal for women not to vote, and it was radical for women to be enfranchised, to speak. Yeah, if that is the case, look, 100 years, which is like one generation, has completely shaped the way we think about women's rights in society. 100 years, 100 years, right? In 1967, in this country, it was illegal to be homosexual. There was a death penalty in this country. That's some 50 years ago. Yeah, we're talking about 50 years ago homosexuality, and now homophobia. So everything is just turned up. So look at the stretchy ruler that we've got. Look at the stretchy ruler. Now you put this stretchy ruler and you're trying to establish if Islam is the truth with it, or if Islam is not compatible with my morals, my aesthetic value judgments, which are based on today's present day popular morality, then it's not true. I would say to you then, how are you sure that in 2057 or 2100, yeah, that we're not going to have a new set of morals, that we're going to now have to change Islam to and stuff like that?
It will change.
Yeah.
Morals do change over time.
Right, so what I'm saying is that, yeah, of course.
Was Islam spread by the sword? And if it was, can you give like explanation in which, and like, if it is, then surely that contradicts la ikraha fi din.
Okay.
Lakum dinukum waliya din. Do you know what I mean?
All right, so I'll answer that, but just let me finish off what I was saying here, sorry, yeah? So the Islamic thesis, in its essence, is a different thesis. The liberal thesis it prioritizes the human being over and above everything else, right? The Islamic thesis prioritizes Allah over and above everything else. It's completely different. The difference, there's one main difference is this, is that Islam attempts to, do you know it's really interesting? Islam and the Quran has a method of falsification. Yeah, it does. It attempts to prove itself. Whereas liberalism, democracy, secularism does not even attempt that. It doesn't even attempt to do that.
Liberalism is not looking to be...
By the way, I'm not saying that liberalism as an ideology is all, practically speaking, is at odds with Islam. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that generally speaking, its epistemological roots are different. The presuppositions of liberalism and the presuppositions of Islam are different.
The question we should ask is liberalism as an ideology trying to say this is absolute truth, or just trying to put...
Yeah, I'm saying if it's not, then the thing is, we're saying that Islam, the case for Islam is that it's an absolute truth. Okay? Islam as a framework, as a religion, attempts to prove that it's absolutely, objectively true. Liberalism, secularism, and all these other ideologies, they don't even attempt to do that.
They're not intending to.
Yes, exactly. Right. So we both agree with that, right? So why measure something which is attempting to be an ultimate truth with something which is not even the philosophers that propounded it didn't even intend for it to be an absolute truth? Do you get what I'm saying? It's a misplacement. So here.